In the early Middle Ages, long before France or Germany existed, a confederation of tribes rose to reshape the map of Europe. They were called the Franks, a people who carved out one of the most influential kingdoms of the medieval world. From tribal warriors on the Roman frontier to empire builders under Charlemagne, the Franks forged the political, cultural, and religious foundations of Western Europe. The story of the Franks begins long before they carved out kingdoms across Western Europe. They first appear in Roman sources during the 3rd century CE as a loose confederation of Germanic tribes living along the lower Rhine River. This region, stretching across what is today parts of the Netherlands, Belgium, and Western Germany, was a cultural frontier where Roman influence and Germanic tradition mingled, clashed, and merged. The Franks themselves weren't a single uniform people. Instead, they were a coalition of smaller groups such as the Salians, the Ripuarians, the Hamavi, the Hatuari, and others. These tribes shared linguistic and cultural similarities, Germanic dialects, warrior centered social structures, the kingship based leadership, but they were not centralized or unified. The term Franki in Roman texts likely meant the fierce ones or the free ones, hinting at how Romans perceived and sometimes feared them. Early Frankish culture was shaped by its environment. Settlements were scattered rather than urbanized, and life revolved around agriculture supplemented by raiding when opportunities arose. The religion was polytheistic, with deities resembling those of broader Germanic mythology Woden, Odin, Donner, Thor, and various local spirits. Modern French and German identities both inherited elements from the Franks, yet neither is a direct continuation of the early Frankish tribal world. Early Franks spoke a West Germanic language, ancestral to modern Dutch, and influenced the development of Old High German. However, in Gaul, Latin remained the dominant spoken language. Over time, the Frankish elite adopted Latin, which evolved into Old French. As a result, modern French is descended from Latin but contains hundreds of Frankish loanwords and structural influences. Modern German, though linguistically closer to the original Frankish tongue, developed separately among the other Germanic populations. German populations shared closer genetic and cultural continuity with the early Franks due to shared Germanic roots. However, the Franks mixed heavily with the Gallo-Roman population in Gaul. This fusion contributed to the ethnogenesis of the French people. France inherits its name from the Franks, Francia, France. Germany inherits many cultural political norms shaped by Frankish rulers east of the Rhine, particularly during and after the Carolingian era. Thus, the Franks sit at the crossroads of French and German identity, Germanic in origin, yet foundational to France's medieval and modern character. Today, we explore their story. Our narrative opens in the late 3rd century, a period known for its political turmoil, economic instability, and military fragmentation within the Roman Empire. To counter the increasing threat posed by Frankish and Saxon pirates raiding the northern coasts, Rome appointed Carausius, a capable naval commander, to secure the English Channel and the North Sea. His mandate was to intercept pirate vessels, protect Roman trade routes, and restore stability in the region. Carausius performed his duties with extraordinary success, capturing numerous enemy ships and restoring some degree of Roman control. However, his success aroused suspicion within Roman leadership, who accused him of allowing pirate incursions for personal gain. Facing recall and likely execution, Carausius declared himself emperor in Britain in 286 CE. This dramatic act demonstrated both the weakness of Rome's central authority and the growing power and influence of the Germanic peoples along its borders, including the Franks, who played an increasingly prominent role in the regional politics and military affairs. After the dramatic episode of Carausius and his breakaway British Empire, the Roman world and the Frankish peoples began a long, turbulent dance that shaped the next century and a half. This was a period marked by constant pressure on the Rhine frontier, the gradual weakening of Roman authority in the west, and the increasingly prominent role of Germanic groups in imperial politics. In the aftermath of Carausius' revolt, Rome sought to stabilize the northern frontier, but the Rhine had fundamentally changed. The Franks, once raiders and pirates, were becoming permanent figures along the Roman border. Some Frankish groups continued to launch raids into Roman territory, while others entered Roman service as foederati, allied troops bound by treaty. This dual identity, both threat and ally, defined Frankish interactions with Rome throughout the 4th century. Under emperors Diocletian and Constantine the Great, large military campaigns were launched to secure the Rhine. Both leaders fought Frankish tribes repeatedly, often crushing uprisings with severity. Constantine, in particular, waged several successful campaigns, celebrating multiple victories over the Franks and even executing captured Frankish kings to enforce discipline. Yet paradoxically, the Franks also became some of Constantine's most dependable soldiers. Many Frankish warriors joined the Roman army, rising to high ranks and gaining valuable experience that would later help build the Frankish kingdom. The most dramatic rupture came on December 31, 406 CE, when the confederation of Vandals, Alans, and Suebi crossed the frozen Rhine. The Roman frontier system collapsed almost overnight. Remarkably, the Franks, already partially federated to Rome, fought to defend the frontier, clashing with the Vandals and even inflicting significant casualties. But their efforts could not prevent the massive migration that poured into Gaul. This chaotic event destabilized Roman rule even further, but it also allowed the Franks to expand. They filled the power vacuums left by the Roman retreats, they strengthened control over the northern Gaul, and their leaders gained the prestige as protectors of local populations. By the early 5th century, the Franks were no longer peripheral. They were central actors in the politics of northern Gaul. In the mid 5th century, the Western Roman Empire faced one of its greatest threats, Attila the Hun. Attila's armies had swept across Central and Eastern Europe, devastating cities and overwhelming Roman defenses. In response, Rome mobilized all available forces and allies. The responsibility for defending the Western Empire fell to Flavius Aetius, often described as the last of the Romans due to his exceptional military leadership and political acumen. To confront Attila, Aetius assembled a broad coalition of Roman troops and Germanic federate allies, including the Franks, also Burgundians, Alans, and Visigoths. At the Battle of Catalaunian Fields, this alliance halted Attila's advance in one of the most significant battles of late antiquity. The partition of the Franks in this coalition underscored their growing importance within the Romans' military system. They were no longer merely frontier tribes, but had become integral to Rome's defensive strategies, foreshadowing their later dominance in the post-Roman West. The decisive turning point in Frankish history came with the rise of Clovis I, a young and ambitious leader of the Salian Franks. In 486 CE, Clovis confronted Syagrius, the last Roman military commander in northern Gaul, who ruled the remnant Roman enclave often called the Kingdom of Soissons. At the Battle of Soissons, Clovis decisively defeated Syagrius, effectively ending Roman political authority in Gaul. This victory marks the founding of the Frankish kingdom, transforming the Franks from one among many Germanic tribes into the leading political force in the region. Clovis established control over vast territories, integrated surviving Roman elites into his administration, and sought to consolidate power through military conquest and strategic alliances. His reign inaugurated the Merovingian dynasty, which would dominate Frankish politics for more than 2 centuries. One of the most consequential events in Frankish history occurred after Clovis' victory against the Alemanni around 496 CE. Influenced by his wife Clotilda, a Burgundian princess and devout Catholic, Clovis chose to convert to Nicene Catholic Christianity rather than Arian Christianity adopted by many other Germanic rulers. This decision had profound implications. His conversion earned him the support of the Catholic Church in Gaul, including the powerful Gallo-Roman episcopate, whose administrative networks remained intact even after the fall of Rome. By aligning himself with the Catholic majority population, Clovis strengthened his legitimacy, improved relations with Romanized elites, and differentiated the Frankish kingdom from neighboring Arian kingdoms, such as the Visigoths and Ostrogoths. This alliance between the Frankish monarchy and the Church would become a defining feature of medieval European politics. In 507 CE, Clovis launched a major campaign against the Visigothic kingdom, which controlled southern western Gaul. At the Battle of Vouille, the Frankish forces defeated the Visigoths, killing their king, Alaric II, and forcing the surviving Visigothic realms to retreat into the Iberian Peninsula. This event, repeated 3 times in the timeline, highlights its significance. The Frankish conquest of Aquitaine represented a vast territorial expansion and marked the effective removal of the Visigoths from the most of Gaul. The victory further strengthened Clovis' standing among the both clergy and the population, confirmed his role as the champion of Catholic orthodoxy, and demonstrated the military superiority of the emerging Frankish state. Clovis died in 511 CE, concluding his influential reign and leaving a complex legacy. As founder of the Merovingian dynasty, he established the political and religious foundations of Frankish power. However, following Frankish custom, his kingdom was divided among his 4 sons. This division resulted in a fragmented political landscape, leading to recurring conflicts between rival Merovingian rulers. Despite internal rivalries, the dynasty endured, and Frankish influence continued to expand. Yet over time, the Merovingian kings became increasingly ceremonial figures, leaving real administrative authority to the mayors of the palace. By the 8th century, effective power in the Frankish kingdom had passed to the mayors of the palace, the most powerful of whom was Charles Martel, or Charles the Hammer. Although never crowned king, Charles wielded authority comparable to any monarch. He reorganized the Frankish military, strengthened his control over regional nobility, and secured the kingdom's frontiers. His most famous achievement was the Battle of Tours in 732 AD, where Frankish forces halted an Umayyad advance from the Iberian Peninsula. Charles Martel's victory enhanced his prestige and solidified the Carolingian family dominance over Frankish politics. Under his leadership, the foundations of a new ruling dynasty were firmly established. Charles Martel's son, Pepin the Short, inherited his father's authority and sought to legitimize it by claiming the royal title. With the explicit support of Pope Zachary, Pepin deposed the last Merovingian king in 751 CE and was anointed king by the Church. This event marked the official beginning of the Carolingian dynasty. Pepin strengthened ties with the papacy by conducting military campaigns in Italy on behalf of the Pope, laying the groundwork for the Papal States. His reign established the Carolingians as both political and religious authorities and opened the way for the imperial ambitions of his son, Charlemagne. Pepin's son, Charlemagne, expanded Frankish power through a series of ambitious military campaigns. One of the most significant was his intervention in Italy, where he defeated the Lombard kingdom in 774 CE. After capturing their capital, Pavia, Charlemagne assumed the title King of the Lombards, becoming the first Germanic ruler to hold both crowns simultaneously. This conquest reinforced Frankish dominance, secured the papacy's political interest, and integrated northern Italy into the expanding Frankish state. It also enhanced Charlemagne's prestige as protector of the church and master of Western Europe. Under Charlemagne's rule, the Frankish kingdom reached its greatest territorial extent. His expansions into Saxony, Bavaria, the Iberian March, and Italy created an empire spanning vast portions of Western and Central Europe. Charlemagne instituted administrative reforms, standardized coinage, reorganized the legal system, and supported scholarship and education in what became known as the Carolingian Renaissance. He assembled scholars from across Europe, including figures such as Alcuin of York, to revive learning and literacy, preserve classical texts, and promote ecclesiastical reform. Charlemagne's administrative innovations laid the groundwork for medieval European governance and helped integrate diverse peoples into a unified political structure. Allegedly, on Christmas Day in 800 CE, Charlemagne was crowned Emperor of the Romans by the Pope Leo III. This coronation represented a symbolic revival of the Western Roman imperial tradition, which had ceased with the deposition of Romulus Augustulus in 476 CE. The new imperial title strengthened Charlemagne's authority, formalized the partnership between the Frankish state and the papacy, and created a precedent for what would later be termed the Holy Roman Empire. This act also emphasized the idea of a Christian empire in the West, distinct from but ideologically linked to the Byzantine Empire in the East. Following Charlemagne's death in 814 CE, his son Louis the Pious inherited the empire. Louis sought to uphold his father's legacy through administrative and religious reforms, but his reign was marked by internal conflict. His attempts to adjust the imperial succession to favor his youngest son triggered revolts among his older sons, leading to prolonged civil strife. These internal conflicts weakened imperial unity, and after Louis' death in 840 CE, the Carolingian Empire fragmented. The subsequent Treaty of Verdun in 843 CE divided the empire among his sons, laying the foundations for the future kingdoms of France, Germany, and other European states. From the earliest encounters with Rome to the establishment of a vast medieval empire, the Franks played a central role in shaping the transition from late antiquity to the Middle Ages. Through military success, religious transformation, and political innovation, they forged the foundations of Western European civilization. Their leaders, Clovis, Charles Martel, Pepin the Short, Charlemagne, and Louis the Pious, left legacies that continue to influence modern political, religious, and cultural identities. The story of the Franks is thus not only a narrative of warfare and kingship, but a foundational chapter in the history of medieval Europe. This was Knights of the Steppe. Thank you for watching.